He holds his JD from here at SLU, his master's in political science from SLU also, and an undergraduate degree also from SLU. He serves on the board of directors at the Islamic Foundation of Greater St. Louis, as well as the board of directors of the South Asian Bar Association, SABA, of Metropolitan St. Louis. And finally, we have Azra Ahmad. Azra is also an attorney here in St. Louis at Mid-America Law Practice, LLC. She holds her JD from here at SLU, a Master's of Science in Speech-Language Pathology from Ithaca College in New York, as well as a Bachelor's of Arts in Psychology from Washington University in St. Louis. She is also a member of the Missouri Bar Association, the South Asian Bar Association, and the Wealth Council. So please join me in welcoming our speakers for today. And first up, we have Nauman.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the kind introduction. Before I get started, I just want to say that I lost my voice over the weekend, so it's coming back. And so if I start to drift off and mumble, just somebody just shout at me or make a face in the back, and I'll elevate my voice. Just to add to my background, my parents migrated from Karachi, Pakistan 40 years ago. They came to St. Louis, and we've been here since. I grew up in St. Charles and moved out to the West County area at about middle school. And as I mentioned, I currently serve on the board of the Islamic Foundation of Greater St. Louis, and I've been a member there for numerous years. I've been on the board for 4 years, and continue to serving on that board as long as I can. In addition, I also did serve on the MSA, which is the Muslim Student Association, while I was in undergrad. And I think it's relevant to point that out because, as it was mentioned, Alan West did come to SLU. He was invited and he did speak, and I think it's relevant to point that out because one of the things he's mentioned in the past, which I think caused a little bit of an uproar, was he had mentioned that the MSA is a stealth jihad Islamic campus organization, and he said that he went on further to say that the MSA is a branch of the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. I can assure you that's not the case. That's not a board that I served on. It's simply just a student organization. It's just like any other student organization. It receives funding from the school, not from anywhere else. It's in no way a terrorist organization or a branch of any organization. And if I had known that, there's no way I would have served on that board. So that's neither here or there. So to get started with today's speech, or my segment, I'm going to be going over briefly just Islamophobia as a whole, kind of the state that the country is in, and then I think the next two speakers will actually get into more detail about their personal experiences and what cases they have and how they're dealing with them. So just to give a brief history, Islam has actually been a part of the fabric of this country since the beginning. It's not something foreign, it's not something new. We've heard the president speak about this, we've heard many people speak about this. Way back, Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin, they both had a copy, their own personal copy of the Quran. These are both individuals who framed the Constitution of this country. They had their own version of the Quran, and I think two quotes, one from each of them, it's just very telling. Thomas Jefferson explicitly included Islam in his future for the Republic of his country. He stated that let Jews, Muslims, and Christians of every denomination enjoy religious liberty. So he clearly took Islam into account when he mentioned the freedom of religion aspect that we all enjoy so freely today. Islam was taken into that account. It wasn't a religion that just came about later. Benjamin Franklin once said that, so even if the Mufti, and a Mufti is an Islamic scholar, so he said even if the Mufti of Constantinople, which is now Istanbul, were to send a missionary to preach Mohammedanism, that's what they called Islam back then, to us, he would find a pulpit at his service. Again, Islam was explicitly taken into account by Benjamin Franklin. And then, even if we want to go further back, we see Islam has played a huge role when it comes to the advancement of sciences, algorithm, art. In fact, and this was a shock to me, the first university, which was established in 859 AD, It was established in Fez, Morocco. The first university was established by 2 Muslim women. I mean, think about that. The first university ever was established by 2 Muslim women. So you have not only Muslims, but you have, I mean, the odds of that. I mean, that was established by 2 Muslims. So again, education is something that Islam has taken into very high regard as well. And then again, modern day, if we take into account our athletes, pop culture, entertainment, politicians, Islam is very rampant. Soccer is the #1 sport in the world. Many Muslims play soccer, many of our athletes. Just over the past year, we had Muhammad Ali, who passed away. He was a Muslim. For our basketball fans, we had Hakeem Olajuwon, a Hall of Famer. He was a Muslim. Cat Stevens, he's a Muslim. We recently heard the Khan family that came up. They're Muslims. Representative Keith Ellison and Andrew Carson, they're Muslims. So you find Muslims in all aspects of our lives. And so the question now becomes, why does Islamophobia exist today? What is bringing about this wave? And it's easy to just pinpoint the media and say, well, it's the media's fault. And I want to take a different turn today, although I will throw in my 2 cents of where the media plays a role into this. But I think it goes beyond that. Of course, another common answer we hear is that the election cycle. Anytime the election cycle comes up, we always hear more and more Islamophobia. But just to put things in perspective, so I'll first talk about the misconceptions that are out there. So just to throw out some statistics, first thing, there are about 3.3 million Muslims in America, which makes up about 1% of the population. So 1% of America follows Islam. And so we can reasonably conclude from that it's safe to say that a significant population of America doesn't have much exposure to Islam, or on a personal level. Whatever they see about Islam is on the media. And what ends up being interesting is that if you look at just the media alone, if you don't have any interaction with Muslims, if you look at just what's out there, intentional or not intentional, I don't want to get into that, but just psychologically speaking, anytime Islam is brought up, it's typically brought up with terrorism. You have a terrorist attack that takes place, and boom, let's talk about Islam. And over time, that becomes a psychological, either whether you want to call it brainwashing or just whatever it is, it has an impact. So if you're someone who has no experience with any Muslims whatsoever, and all you see is that Islam is brought up anytime there's a terrorist event, then naturally your conclusion is going to be that Islam is intertwined with terrorism or terrorism is intertwined with Islam. It's just natural. And so this ends up leading to Muslim children getting bullied. This ends up leading to Muslim women wearing the hijab or the veil getting bullied, or mosques getting vandalized. And we see an increasing number of that as time goes on. And this all stems from the fear that's created in society. And I'm not trying to pick on Republicans here when I spit out these statistics. It's not, my point isn't to attack any party or the other. It's just to show what some of the statistics that are out there. Gallup did a poll that said that after Donald Trump made this statement about banning Muslims from coming into this country, 65% of Republicans agreed with that. And then it said 57% of Republicans agreed that a Muslim should not be able to run for president. I don't know if many remember when Ben Carson, this was during the primary stage, he had made a statement that earlier this year that when if there's a Muslim, he should not be allowed to run for president. And then he received some resistance for that statement. And I actually thought when he apologized and modified his statement, I think that it's kind of worse than the original statement he made. He said that, so originally he had said that, if you're a Muslim, you shouldn't be allowed to run for president. He apologized, he modified it, and he said, well, no, you can be a Muslim, but so long as you're not practicing Islam, you can run for president. So, and just to clarify the distinction, because I know this has come up quite a bit in the past. So Islam is a religion, and a Muslim is a follower of the religion of Islam. So when I mention those two, just keep that in mind. So if I'm mentioning Muslim, that's the followers of the religion, which is Islam. And then another interesting statistic, and this is of all Americans, so not just Republicans, it's Democrats, Republicans, or anyone else. And I found this to actually be the most concerning statistic. 49% of all Americans in general fear that they may be a victim of Islamic terrorism. 49%. So about half of this country fears that they may be a victim of Islamic terrorism. Now what's interesting is that the FBI now but they also flesh this out in detail just to alleviate the stress that people have. They don't constantly worry about being attacked by an Islamic terrorist. They said that, to put things in perspective, you are more likely to be shot by a toddler in this country than you are to be a victim of Islamic terrorism. And they went on further to say that you are actually more likely to be killed by your own faulty home furniture. No, really, it's more likely to be killed by your own faulty home furniture than Islamic terrorism. And again, I'm not trying to minimize that Islamic terrorism isn't a threat. It is, but it should be taken into perspective. And the kicker here also is that the FBI went on further to say that you're twice as more likely to be killed by a right-wing white supremacist terrorist group than an Islamic terrorist group. So now knowing all this, we should come back to the point that I had made that when the media is covering Islam and, again, intertwining terrorism to Islam constantly and bringing it in anytime, people in Middle America that have no exposure to Muslims at all, and all they see is Islam and terrorism connected all the time. I don't really blame those individuals because that's all they see. That's the only reality they have. And so, now that I'm done, with my media spin, I think we need to go a step further. As far as what terrorism is, I think one of the biggest problems is that we really don't know how to define that term. That term has lost its meaning. The reason why I say that is because we have all these events that take place, and certain things get defined as terrorism and other things don't. So rather than going into what exactly it is, when Orlando happened, that was defined as terrorism. When the San Bernardino attack happened, that was terrorism. The Paris attack, that was terrorism. Well, let's go over some of the things that weren't. So Bob Deere, he was the individual that shot the Planned Parenthood clinic in Colorado. He explicitly said he did it in the name of Christ and he was going to save babies, and that's why he did it. However, that act wasn't defined as terrorism. Dylan Roof, the Charleston, South Carolina shooter, killing African Americans at a church. Again, he identified himself as a churchgoer and a practicing Christian. That wasn't identified as terrorism. Michael Wade Page, a neo-Nazi white supremacist. This was disturbing. He actually shot up a Sikh temple thinking that it was Muslims because they were wearing turbans. And that wasn't defined as terrorism. Joseph Stack in Austin, Texas. He was the guy who flew that plane into the IRS building because he was sick and tired of paying taxes. That wasn't defined as terrorism, and one government official was killed. Jared and Amanda Miller, they were the individuals in Las Vegas who shot 2 police officers, and then on their body they put "Don't Tread on Me" flags. That wasn't defined as terrorism. So I think the word itself has lost its meaning, and it's just becoming really difficult to understand what is and what isn't terrorism. And so to kind of wrap up my segment, one of the peeves I have, and this comes into perspective in my role of serving on the Islamic Foundation of Greater St. Louis, we often hear that when these terrorist attacks do happen, that the Muslim community has a role to outwardly speak out against it, be proactively apologetic about it, and condemn it in a way that they just have to do that. And there's 2 points I want to make about this. One, there's a perspective out there that why should Muslims have to apologize? Why should Muslims have to apologize for what these other groups claim in the name of Islam to do? Why is it the role of Muslims to apologize for what they do? Because when you do apologize, in a way you're taking ownership for that. You're saying that these people are a part of us and we apologize for their actions. So why is it that we have to apologize? The second perspective is that, well, Muslims actually are doing that. We are condemning it. It's being actively done. In my role on the board, I can honestly tell you, we make statements all the time. When the Orlando shooting happened, we made a statement. We had a press conference. Recently, we put up a billboard out on Manchester and Wideman Road, and there's one on 270 and Page now. It's that "Hey ISIS, you suck" sign. Many of you saw. That wasn't in response to anything. It was we took that initiative just to do that. So it's getting out there, and it's not, and so again, now if you go back to what I was saying with the whole majority of Americans don't have that interaction with Muslims, and if all they see is just negativity with terrorism and Islam, if equally you're not portraying the good that Muslims are doing, the outwardly speaking and how they're outwardly actually condemning it, then you're only going to see the bad and you're not seeing the good. And so it's just that unbalance. And so these people are only getting a skewed view. To wrap things up, I do want to say that in the end, I still believe that there's always more good than bad. I do believe that the end goal is that Muslims need to be, or want to be treated just like everyone else. I honestly do believe that there's more good people out there than bad, and that despite what's out there, for the Muslims, don't be fearful. Continue to do what it is that you're doing. Most Americans, obviously, are very accepting. And for everyone else, one statistic that I forgot to mention, all the statistics that I had mentioned about 47% or 49% are fearful, it said that if people actually had a personal interaction with a Muslim, that number was reduced by half. So once they actually knew a Muslim and could identify someone as a Muslim, then they realized that the negative rating that they had of a Muslim was brought down by half, just by a single interaction with a single Muslim. And so I try to end with just a quick story, and I know my time's up, just a quick story. The reason why I say there's more good than bad, I know recently I was at a graduation for my cousin. She graduated from high school, and she went to Parkway West, so there's a pretty prominent Muslim community out in the West County area. And so we were there, and it was the time to pray. So Muslims pray 5 times a day. So there was a group of Muslims that went on the side, and they did a prayer, and I joined in. I joined them. And after we were done, there was a group of people that were watching. And as soon as we finished, they came up to me. I guess they recognized me from before. I don't know. They came up and they said, that was really great to see. And they were like, it's very admirable that even in today's, environment, that you guys are able to still feel comfortable enough to do this. And that just made my day. I mean, right there, that is what America is. We are a country of immigrants. We are a country of accepting people for who they are, for all various types of backgrounds. And even if we don't all necessarily agree with everything, not only are we tolerant of each other's views, but we're respectful of it. Lastly, if anybody has any questions at the end, please ask any and all questions. Don't be shy about it. This is the time to ask. I won't judge you. I hope nobody else judges you. Ask whatever it is you want to ask. I think that's what fleshes out a good discussion, and we can, thank you.